Good morning and happy 4th of July. I'm Laurel Frischman and I will be your worship associate for today's UU Coastside Community Service. Welcome everyone. You may be here for the first time, curious about our faith, or you've been here before, or are a longtime member. Welcome. We especially want to welcome today visitors from the other two congregations of San Mateo County, UU San Mateo, the UU Fellowship of Redwood City, and we want to also warmly welcome members of the UU community of Lake County. So good to see all of you here today. Thank you for coming. All are welcome here, whether or not you believe in God or a higher power, hold to humanist or secular teachings, if you come from another religion, or if you have always been a Unitarian Universalist, you are welcome here. The UU Coastside community welcomes all people of all skin tones, the LGBTQ+ community, kids and mature folks, those with life challenges and those temporarily without such challenges. For here we are working to overcome our society's systemic biases, and you specifically are most welcome here today. Today, our dearly beloved Kai Marks returns to talk with us on finding the hero within, exploring the sacred aspects of the hero's journey. Join us as we explore how to be the protagonist in our own lives. Joseph Campbell said that heroes are people who dedicate their lives to something greater than themselves. What makes a hero in our world today? And how do we find something greater, either to connect with or to dedicate our lives to? How do we find meaning and purpose and make the world a better place for ourselves and each other? And after the service today, I hope you stay on Zoom to join our usual random breakout groups that give us a chance to discuss thoughts from today's service. And before I move on, I want to explain this Flowerworks display behind me. So it's my attempt at a 4th of July Flowerworks display. So if you squint your eyes and look real close, it kind of looks like fireworks, but you really have to use your imagination. And now our opening hymn this morning, We'll Build a Land, which is number 121 in the UU hymnal and is sung today by Linda Grace Frost, Shauna Pickett Gordon, and Tom Devine, with Tom on piano. So please rise in body and or spirit and add your voice, or just listen to this beautiful hymn, We'll Build a Land.
Where the oil Good morning. On this 4th of July, this match will not ignite fireworks, but will take a heroic journey to light our UUCC Chalice. Now please join us in reading these chalice lighting words by the Reverend Barnaby Fetter from As We Travel in Unknown Lands. We kindle a flame we trust will lead us forward as we travel in unknown lands where the question, shall I ever get there, resounds a clear, pure note in every silence. Now, Laurel, will you lead us in sharing our joys and concerns?
Thank you, Dave. In a moment, we'll play a video where Bill invites us to share our joys and concerns. While the video is playing, please feel free to share your joys and concerns using the chat window and to read what is shared there by others. You also have the opportunity to reply back directly to someone in the chat window, and you can either reply to the whole group or you can reply just to that individual. So feel free to share what's on your mind. And just to remind you also, for upcoming services, if you have any joys or concerns that you would specifically like the worship associate to read aloud, please email us prior to the service.
One of the ways we create our beloved community is by sharing our own joys and our concerns with one another and finding support from our community. At this time, we invite you to click the chat button at the bottom middle of your Zoom window. That brings up a window in which you can type any joys or concerns. As you do so, we will hear Vera Vandershock play La Grima by Francisco Tárrega. In these times of reflection and renewal, let us remember that it remains important to reach out to one another when we feel the need, and to accept being reached out to. May we find comfort in knowing that we can share our joys and our concerns here among us.
Along with so much personal sorrow, many of us send special love and heartful thoughts to the residents of the Surfside, Florida condo. We hold each of the family members in a virtual warm embrace as they await news of their loved ones. May we hold with love and care the joys and concerns that have been shared publicly today, as well as those that remain unspoken in the recesses of our hearts. Before I introduce our guest speaker, Tom has a reading for us.
Thank you, Laurel. Our reading today is Der Schauende, which means the person watching. It's one of Rainer Maria Rilke's early poems, written sometime between 1899 and 1902. When the poem starts, the speaker is apparently alone in a rural house, and he's in a state of boredom or spiritual stagnation. But he senses that some great change is coming, something challenging like a great storm. The fields seem to talk to him, maybe intimating a challenge or a call to action. And suddenly everything is serious and heavy. Eternity seems to hang in the balance. What follows is his breakthrough realization about what the hero's journey really is for any of us. In my own life, I've found his answer profoundly encouraging. This is Robert Bly's translation. I can tell by the way the trees beat after so many dull days on my worried window panes that a storm is coming. And I hear the far-off fields say things I can't bear without a friend. I can't love without a sister. The storm, the shifter of shapes, drives on across the woods and across time, and the world looks as if it had no age. The landscape, like a line in the psalm book, is seriousness and weight and eternity. What we choose to fight is so tiny. What fights with us is so great. If only we would let ourselves be dominated as things do by some immense storm, we would become strong too and not need names. When we win, it's with small things, and the triumph itself makes us small. What is extraordinary and eternal does not want to be bent by us. I mean, the angel who appeared to the wrestlers of the Old Testament. When the wrestlers' sinews grew long like metal strings, he felt them under his fingers like chords of deep music. Whoever was beaten by this angel, who often simply declined the fight, went away proud and strengthened and great from that harsh hand that kneaded him as if to change his shape. Winning does not tempt that man. This is how he grows, by being defeated decisively by constantly greater beings. And since Robert Bly often would repeat parts of his poems, I'll say, we could also say, winning does not tempt that woman. This is how she grows, by being defeated decisively by constantly greater beings. And now Laurel will introduce our guest speaker.
Now, with great pleasure, I get to introduce our worship leader today. Kai Marks is a writer, teacher, and spiritual director who is also a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Redwood City. Kai is a graduate of the Carolyn Mace Education Institute programs, both in archetypes and in mysticism. And she's also a graduate of the Disney Institute program for excellence in leadership. She holds an MFA in creative writing from the University of San Francisco, and she currently serves as the head of School for Fusion Academy in Palo Alto. She dearly loves the UUC community, as we all dearly love her, and she is deeply honored to be a part of this worship service today. Welcome, Kai.
Laurel, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be back with you again. And it's a pleasure to be with you as we celebrate this Independence Day together. It's fitting to be together today, looking at our own life's journey through the lens of the hero's journey, because In many ways, the hero's journey is the path to both our own personal independence and our collective sense of interdependence. Now, certainly the hero's journey is not a new idea, and we are not the first ones to be exploring it. So much of our literature, from the ancient Greeks to the Harry Potter series, illustrate the hero's journey, as do so many films in our contemporary culture, from superhero movies to Star Wars. While the archetype of the hero's journey is something most of us recognize now, there was a time when it was new to me. Back in 1992, when I was a senior in high school, we were the first class in our community ever to be tasked with the senior project. And for mine, I had chosen to study language arts education for middle school students. We were required to find a willing mentor who would spend a year guiding us on the project. And through a series of events that I now can clearly see as sacred or meant, I found a willing mentor in an 8th grade teacher named Barbara Hinman. Barbara was a legend, even then, and it didn't take me long to see why. I had expected to learn something from her about lesson plans or about teaching to a variety of students, but what I got was so much more. In Barbara's 8th grade classroom, students were studying the work of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey through works like Into the Woods, The Dark is Rising, and The Once and Future King. And while she was teaching students how to identify the elements of the hero's journey in literature, she herself was also doing so much more. She was teaching them all how to see themselves as protagonists in their own hero's journey, and by her own example, showing them how to dedicate their lives to something greater than themselves. Now, for those of you who may be less familiar with the elements of the hero's journey, in the longer versions, they include the call to adventure, wherein a person hears a calling from somewhere divine or somewhere beyond themselves. And usually it's a call towards something frightening or towards something they would rather not do. This, in turn, leads to the natural refusal of the call, followed by supernatural aid, the finding of friends and companions on the journey, a test, trial, or initiation, followed by a reward or triumph, followed then by a return to the former world with the hero or heroine now forever transformed by the experience, having experienced both the natural and the supernatural world. Simply put, the hero's journey is the template for a mystical experience. Now, if this is too many elements to remember, we can describe the hero's journey in some other ways. Some sources define it simply as having only 3 elements: the departure, the initiation, and the return. Another possible way to look at the hero's journey comes in so many of our fictional or short stories. Someone wanted, but so, as in someone wanted something, but they didn't get it, or it didn't happen. So then what? And the person's story unfolds. Or, for those of you interested in an even simpler way, by the unofficial goddess of the UU tradition, Mary Oliver, pay attention, be astonished, tell others. So why are these elements important? Because by understanding our own sacred journey and being able to recognize and respond to the call to adventure, we become positive agents for change for ourselves, for each other, and for the larger world. And by doing so, we participate in building a land better than the one we've known today. Christopher Reeve is another famous example of a modern-day hero on the journey. After having played Superman in films, one day a tragic accident left him paralyzed, and rather than allowing that to stop him, he became an example for everyone of how to triumph over the limitations in the physical world. Christopher once said that what makes Superman a hero is not that he has the power, but that he has the wisdom and maturity to use that power wisely. A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. So now think for a moment about your own life and a time you had to walk through an experience that you would never have chosen for yourself. Likely, you could sense somewhere deep inside yourself that this calling was not your choice, and it certainly was not of this world. You may have looked for any option to refuse it, like the famous teacher Jesus from the Christian tradition, "Let this cup pass from me." But gradually, you realize that you must depart from what you have always known and begin the journey of this particular call that is one call of many in the greater sets of journeys in a lifetime. If you were able to pay attention, you likely recall receiving some kind of help or strength that could only be characterized as supernatural or beyond our five senses in the physical world, as something transcendent. At some point, others arrived who could provide assistance and companionship. Somehow, though you may not even be able to explain it, you survived the ordeal and you returned to your life in the space where you began, yet you're forever changed by that experience, like Dorothy after Oz. The labyrinth is another way to visualize the hero's journey. As we walk the path of the labyrinth, we're on the journey to the center, to the heart of something. And just when we arrive, there's a brief time to pause, and then we must walk back out into the external world and into the rest of our lives waiting for us. On our own life's journey, we're called toward those things that reveal to us what our heart wants and what we're meant to do in this life. In order to find this, we all face tests and trials and storms and times when we may feel as though we can't go on. And yet, this is the process by which we cultivate faith and the process by which we learn the importance of dedicating our lives to something greater than ourselves. This is how we find and embody our life purpose. This is also how we learn to navigate the journey with grace, even when the road ahead looks arduous and the path forward is not immediately clear. If we learn to pay attention to what is happening, we can recognize when something sacred has entered our lives, and this recognition should fill us with a sense of awe and cause us to be astonished in a very good way. We may even be astonished by this discovery of a quality or a talent or a strength in ourselves that we didn't know we possessed. Perhaps we can recognize that someone came into our lives just when we needed them the most, and we know we could never have made that happen on our own. And when we return from the call to adventure, astonished by what we have experienced, we tell others. We share our blessings and our experiences with the larger world, and then we repeat this cycle many times in our lives. Sometimes we're the protagonist, and sometimes we serve as a companion for someone else. Now, when we start talking about these big cosmic things, there's a temptation to believe that everything we do has to somehow be really large. But the language of heaven is often the language of paradox, and something that looks small can be really large. I'll give you an example. A wonderful human being sent me a text message this morning just when I needed to hear it the most. And ironically or not, it began with the words, "You might not need to hear this, but it was exactly what I needed to hear." That's all it takes to be a companion on someone's soul's journey. So you can think of it this way. So now this person who sent me this text, when somebody asks him, "What'd you do today?" he can rightly say, "I was a hero on Independence Day. I gave somebody back to themselves. I encouraged somebody. I took someone's astral body from this big to 12 feet in a second," right? Beat that. Every single one of us can do that. And that's a small thing. What are the odds that I would have even read that at the time, but it was perfect. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And in order to be able to do that, you have to pay attention to the world going on around you. Simple, but not always easy. My own life experience and the work I do with other people and the experience I've had has caused me to believe that there is no such thing as a person who does not receive supernatural aid. My experience is that everyone does, but not everyone recognizes it. If all goes well, the tests of the journey have set us free in some way, or have released us from the bonds of fear and helped us to discover a new confidence within ourselves. This is how we gain independence from the approval of others and the limitations of the physical world. This is how we triumph over adversaries, whether that adversary is an illness, a difficult circumstance, a betrayal, or something that happens between us and another person. But it's also how we learn the value of interdependence, because we recognize that we need each other to get through the most arduous experiences of our journey. Here's why it's important to understand this template. I can give you one more really good reason, and that is, if you understand how this works, it allows you to choose faith over fear. So next time something comes into your life, because it will, we go through this over and over again, just like Harry Potter. If we only did it once, there'd be one book, but there's at least 8, right? So when it shows up, the difference is if you recognize this template, instead of saying, oh no, why me, and crumbling under the fear and the weight of it, you can look and you can recognize the call to adventure for what it is and say, great, I might not know what's ahead of me. I might not know why this is asked of me, but I know supernatural aid and some good friends are on the way. And I know discovery is on the way. And if you can see that, and if you can hold that in the midst of the test, that is what allows you to be a person of faith rather than a person of fear, and a person who doesn't miss it when the miracles with your name on it happen in your own life. For myself, I think that's a pretty worthwhile way to go. I'll leave that decision up to you. But it really helps to be able to look at the universe and say, why not me? I can take it, right? If you've got the chops that you can look at heaven and say, okay, Cookie, let's go. There are no limits to what you can do in your own life and in the lives of the people you love and in the lives of people you have not met. And believe it or not, this is how legacy is born. This is how you influence the lives of the people yet to be born. Back in 1992, when I first stepped into Barbara Hinman's classroom all those years ago, there was no way I could have foreseen how that experience would affect not only my practices as a future English teacher, but how that experience would also eventually lead me to becoming a certified archetypal consultant and a spiritual director who bears witness to the mystical experiences of others, to then becoming someone who's been astonished myself and now tells others about the significance of the hero's journey on Sunday mornings, to someone who dedicates myself to something greater every day in the physical world in my day job as a head of school. I'm sure Barbara did not foresee all these things for me either, nor did she live to see the infinite ways that her own dedication to making her life something greater would inspire her students to go on and find their own ways to change and create transformation in the lives of so many other people. In this way, everything we do, every choice we make, all of it matters. In every moment, we have the power to pay attention to the sacred in our everyday lives. We have the power within us to be Superman, masquerading as the unassuming Clark Kent. We have the power to change our lives for the better, to declare personal independence from the things that have held us back, and to be a source of aid to our fellow companions on the journey and to the interdependent web of all life. We become agents of positive change. We understand that we have the power to assist in the creation of miracles every day. And I can't imagine a more wonderful way to live. So, pay attention. Be astonished. Tell others. That is what the true hero's journey looks like. Blessed be. I invite you now to reflect on what aspects of this service have spoken to you as we listen to Tom Devine play A Foreign Lands and People from Robert Schumann's Scenes of Childhood.
Wow, Tom, you are so talented. Thank you for that beautiful song. And Kai, oh my goodness, that was such an insightful and inspirational sermon. You had so many wonderful tips for me. I'm going to have to go back and listen to that again. It was awesome. Thank you for that and sharing your knowledge. Heroes seem to be everywhere. Marvel comics come to life in fantastic blockbuster movies, blowing things up and saving the world at the same time. Gosh, how can we compete with Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, and Black Panther? These Marvel superheroes get their powers from a multitude of sources, some inherited, magic, random chance, or destiny. But in the real world, we all have the potential to be superheroes to someone or something. That source of power is in us when we show kindness and love, and when we practice generosity to our fellow man. As Kai shared with us, when we find meaning and purpose in our lives and connect to others, we are able to be the hero self we know we are. One of the ways that we can connect and practice generosity is giving monetarily to the Unitarian Universalist Coastside community. Another way to show your generosity is by sharing your skills and talents through volunteering. And if you are interested in joining us in any volunteer capacity, please send an email to uucoastside@gmail.com. And by being here today, you are giving something very precious to our UUC community, the gift of your time. Thank you for giving in whatever ways feel the most impactful to you. Your generosity is appreciated. As your generous spirit moves you today, please feel free to contribute what you can to UUCC, either by check or online. The instructions for giving are in today's order of service. While these collections take place, let's take a few moments to hear Linda Grace Frost, Shauna Pickett Gordon, and the voices from the UUCC choir sing hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me. And please feel free to sing along. The words are in your order of service.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. Where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. Where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. There'll be singing in that land. Where I'm bound.
We so appreciate the voices that have come together to form our UUCC choir. If you are interested in being a part of this fun musical journey, it is all virtual at this point, very interesting. We would love to have you. Please send an email to Tom. His email is in the chat window. And now for some announcements. We want to thank UU San Mateo for administrative and professional support and allowing us to participate in their recent All Together Now auction. Tricia Dell and Becky Howland, UUSM auction co-chairs, are proud to report that after expenses, $23,000 was raised for the All Together Now auction, and UUCC will receive $2,300. How exciting that these funds will support UUCC in sponsoring the popular Shared Pulpit class with Tovis Page, which is scheduled for mid-August. Thank you to all of those from the UU Coastside community who donated and bid on items. Congratulations, and one more big thank you to all for your participation. On our July 18th Gallery View Sunday, please join us as we explore how millennials do religion. We will watch and discuss a video by Nathaniel Drew, a young YouTube influencer with over 1.4 million subscribers. More than any preceding generation, millennials are driving the growth of nuns, referring to those who are unaffiliated with any organized religion. Nathaniel is a voracious reader of books, including many religious texts, which he translates to a younger audience as a way of figuring out life, developing more mental clarity, and fostering more authentic social connections. This should make for an enriching Sunday morning. And now Dave will guide us in extinguishing the chalice.
We will now extinguish the chalice flame. Please join us now in reading these words by Elizabeth Selig Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now Kai has some closing words for us.
Today's closing words come from the poet and mystic John O'Donohue. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. May you be blessed with good friends and learn to be a good friend to yourself, journeying to that place in your soul where there is love, warmth, and feeling. May this change you.
Thanks to everyone who contributed to this wonderful, enlightening service today. Thank you, Kai, for your inspirational words and lessons for life. We also want to acknowledge our first Sunday production team, UUCC Music Director Tom Devine, our Chalice Lighter Dave Rakowski, Artistic Director Noreen Cooper-Hevlin, and our Session Management Engineer and Video Editor Bruce Raffnell. We also want to acknowledge the beautiful music by Tom, Vera Vandershock, and the UUCC Choir and friends. And thanks to all of you for participating in this timely service. Immediately following the service, Bill will create some breakout rooms for which will serve as a safe place to talk openly and honestly about today's topic or anything else that might be on your minds. Consider it kind of like the post-service coffee hour, but without donuts, although I have donuts. And once again, if you use your imagination, you just might smell the coffee brewing in the kitchen. I hope you'll all join us in these breakout rooms, and please keep in mind that what is said here stays here, but thoughts and concepts we learn and are inspired by can most definitely be shared. Please be thoughtful of the time so that anyone who wishes to speak has the opportunity to do so. Here are some discussion points to consider. What does it mean to you to give your life to something greater than yourself? What aspects of the hero's journey resonate with you or not? What is one more step you can take to increase joy and in your own life and in the life of another person? In just a few moments, Bill will give everyone permission to unmute themselves. Have a very enjoyable and safe 4th of July holiday.